welcome back to Riksha Vibhavana, the tropical Vedic podcast where we take a closer look at the astrology of the week ahead. Our focus is the week of December 28th through January 3rd, 2026. Happy New Year, everyone. This week is a threshold week. The old year exhales, the new year inhales, and the breath between them is dense with gravity, consequence, and possibility. We're in the midst of Capricorn season, with things shifting rapidly. The sober tone of last week thus continues, but is displaced by the weekend's full moon in Cancer, in the comforting home of the moon. The week opens with the sobering influence of Mercury square Saturn, slowing the mind, demanding precision, accountability and maturity in thought and speech. Early conversations feel weighty. Decisions cannot be rushed. What lacks structure reveals its weakness quickly. Then, as the week progresses, the mental tone finally lightens with the moon's passage through Gemini at the year's turning point, offering dialogue, reflection, and a momentary sense of air after prolonged Capricorn gravity. The week culminates in a full moon in Cancer, conjoined Jupiter in Punarvasu nakṣatra, standing opposite a densely combust Capricorn stellium, which we'll unpack in a moment. Emotion, care, and the need for restoration rise to the surface. We are reminded that we belong to something greater. As the week begins, the mind encounters limits. These can be delays, sobering conversations, revisions, the sense that something must be earned and not assumed. If frustration arises, it is diagnostic, showing where structure is missing. This is excellent terrain for planning, editing, outlining, and committing to long-term goals, but poor terrain for forcing agreement or rushing announcements. Then on the 31st, the moon enters Gemini, lifting the atmosphere after the prolonged Capricorn compression. This feels like fresh air in the lungs. Conversation returns, curiosity reawakens. New Year's Eve carries a lighter, more connective tone. Messages, exchanges, reflections shared rather than brooded over. Yet this is not frivolity. Gemini year acts as a messenger, helping us articulate what the Capricorn weeks have been shaping internally. Yes, this is a great time to speak, but an even better time to listen. Then, New Year's Day, Mercury itself enters Capricorn and the tone firms once again. Now thoughts, speech and planning align with hierarchy, accountability, consequence and long-term vision. This marks the mental commitment to the year ahead. Don't just think resolutions, but structure. Not just wishes, but architecture to shape your determined effort. Words spoken now have staying power. Then on the 3rd of January, we come to the full moon itself. The week, and for that matter the lunar month itself, culminates in a full moon in Cancer in Punarvasu nakṣatra, joining Jupiter, the great benefic. This is a moment of restoration and return. Punarvasu carries the promise of renewal after hardship, the light that comes back after it was lost. Yet this full moon stands opposite a heavily combust Capricorn cluster. This is the stellium mentioned earlier. Planets here are said to be combust when they are so close to the sun that they seem to be subsumed by the sun's light. 2026 begins with Mars combust, Venus combust, and Mercury combust, all gathering near the sun. Here lies the tension of the week and the turning point of the year, raising questions about private nourishment versus public duty, emotional truth versus structural necessity. The question arises, what sustains us versus what is demanded of us? What gives this moment deeper coherence is that the full moon does not arise in isolation. It completes the lunar story that began with the new moon in Mula a few weeks ago. A movement from radical uprooting to gentle restoration, from descent into the root to a return to nourishing light. Mula is associated with the fierce and wrathful form of the Great Mother and tears away false foundations. It exposes what cannot endure. The beginning of the cycle was uncompromising, even severe, a stripping down to first principles. Punarvasu, by contrast, is the return of goodness after the storm. Its very name means renewal, return of the light. At this full moon, the moon joins Jupiter, amplifying meaning, generosity and perspective. And yet this grace unfolds opposite a field of intense combust Capricorn energy. The axis tells a profound story. Restoration is offered, but it must be integrated into responsibility. Grace does not cancel discipline, it completes it. Punarvasu is ruled by Aditi, the great mother of the gods. Her name literally means the unbound, the undivided, that which cannot be cut. She is not merely a maternal figure, she is the expansive foundation of reality itself, the womb in which all forms arise without losing their unity. In Vedic cosmology, Aditi represents wholeness prior to division. Her sister Diti, by contrast, embodies difference, separation and fragmentation. From Diti arise the Daityas and Asuras, not demons in a simplistic moral sense, but forces of dualistic perception, minds caught in opposition, comparison and division. Seen inwardly, this lore becomes psychological and spiritual. Diti on one hand represents the consciousness that splits reality into me versus you, mine versus yours, success versus failure. Aditi is the consciousness of non-difference, the equanimous field in which all experience arise without fragmenting the self. This is why Aditi is associated with samatvam as it's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, even-mindedness, the balanced, non-reactive awareness praised in the Bhagavad Gita as the foundation of liberation. Samatvam is not indifference, it is unitative clarity, or in the words of Sri Krishna, it is yoga itself, the ability to hold pleasure and pain, gain and loss without losing one's center. As a mother and protectress, Aditi is described as gentle and responsive. Unlike wrathful deities who demand perfections, she is easily pleased by sincere offerings, by effort made in good faith, by humility and by remembrance. This is crucial in a week dominated by combustion. Where combustion burns away excess and ego-driven expression, Aditi restores what is essential. She does not reward ambition, she blesses alignment. When the will has been purified by the sun's fire, her abundance can flow freely, emotionally, spiritually, and even materially. Tradition tells us, most beautifully in the Mahabharata, that Aditi herself incarnated as Devaki, the mother of Sri Krishna, Vishnu in human form. This lore reveals something profound. Unitive consciousness must eventually take form. Aditi does not remain abstract. She becomes Devaki, bound, constrained, imprisoned, so that divine intelligence can be born into history. In the same way, the expressive wisdom of this full moon must incarnate within the structures forged by Capricorn's discipline. At its deepest level, this lunation offers a choice. Remain in divided perception, reaction from fear, pressure and fragmentation, that would be Diti. Or return to unitive awareness where responsibility is carried without bitterness and effort is guided by grace. Under this full moon, abundance does not come from grasping, it comes from remembering wholeness. When the mind becomes even, the mother is already pleased, and when she is pleased, she blesses all levels of life, quietly, steadily and without limit. Thank you for tuning in with me. I have been your host Kavi. You can find me on Instagram at Eye of the Vedas, and if you're called to explore your own chart in greater depth, I offer personalized readings and one-on-one study through my page. Wishing you a luminous full moon. Hare Krishna.